Okay, so today is going to be introduction of machine learning. All right, so let's have a look at it. So today's content will be on machine learning basics, types of learning. We're going to look at a little bit on what is classification regression, and then we'll see a little bit on overfitting and underfitting, and then finally ethics in AI. Right, again, as I said earlier, you might not understand fully what it means, but just follow through until the end. Hopefully, when the right time comes, when the lecture, for example, regression lecture comes, which is in chapter 3, you would understand inside out. Okay, so let's go through. Okay, so machine learning is basically like teaching a machine to develop a model. Right, for example, I show you 5 flowers. I show to a baby 5 types of flowers, and then the 6th flower I pluck and I ask the baby, what flower is this? Right, that is machine learning. So basically, for machine, I'll give a lot of training data set. It will learn from training data set, and then end of the day, when I'll ask something new, and it'll explain to me, this is it, based on what it has learned. Right, so our job is to understand about the concepts, understand about the algorithm, to teach the machine. Okay, so different type of questions that I can ask. Right, for example, what type of flower? Example, is it going to rain today or not? Example, right? Are you going to pass or fail your exam? These are all example of questions, right? So the questions answer also different. They can be yes or no answer. They can be today's today's temperature going to be 35.7. So it's a number rather than yes or no answer, right? What else? Uh, the rating for a restaurant. You go to a restaurant, you rate the restaurant 1 to 5. Different type of answer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, representing how to what extent you like the restaurant, right? So different type of answers. That's why different types of machine learning methods. Okay, so let me show this diagram, Venn diagram. So machine learning is basically a part of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has been there for very long now, right? For example, neural network, it is not something that is new. Rather, it has been there for very long now. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough data, enough computation power those days. That is why it was not blooming those days. But just recently, we have that computation power. We have, for example, your phone. Yeah, your handphone can behave like a computer, can process like a computer. So we have the computation power. At the same time, we have data. As I said, if I show you 5 flowers and I ask you the 6th flower what it is, you should be able to explain to me. If I give you 1,000,000 flowers to learn and I ask you 1 flower, the accuracy would be very high, right? So that is why the increase of data makes the method or model better. Okay, so that is artificial intelligence. Example artificial, as I said, neural network. Other example that I can think of, any? Any? You can say out loud. Genetic algorithm. Anything else? Fuzzy logic. Yeah, many actually, right? Those are artificial intelligence. The difference between artificial intelligence is that we can't really differentiate. Rather, it is just a small part of artificial intelligence. It's a subset, right? Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. Okay, and then in machine learning, there's one thing called deep learning. It's very famous, right? Everybody's talking about deep learning. And deep learning is again just a neural network. Deep learning is neural network with many layers in there. In neural network, we can create layers for it to learn, right? So deep learning is basically many layers of neural network. That's it. Okay, so data science. Basically, data science is, of course, science of data, right? So it's a mixture of math, statistics, computer science, and whatever domain that you investigate on, where your data come from. For example, if I do My data is on climate. Of course, I need to know, I need to meet a climatologist, for example, for me to create a proper model, right? So data science is very much domain centric. If I do a biological data set, there should be a biologist in my team, such a way that whatever model that I create is a really good model. Okay? Happy? Okay. So that's the story here. I'm just saying it out with words. Okay, right. So data science. First is, of course, data. Data are collection of description, can be observation, right? And then on top of it, you'll do some sort of analysis, right? And what is science? Of course, you know what is science. The intellectual and practical activity encompassing of systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. A long sentence, but that is science. Okay. In short, I just want to do analysis in a very structured manner. Okay. So first thing first, data, right? First, story is data. Even next week, the lecture going to be data, all about data. So here, just very short story of data, right? So data has, first we want to understand data. We see the type of data first, right? So there are three types, three big family. One is structured data. There's then semi-structured data. There's then finally unstructured data. So structured data and then unstructured data. In between, there's a semi-structured data. Okay. I'll straight away show you example. Structured data, whatever that you can represent in the form of table. Okay, your Excel file, right? Your Excel file. You can see your Excel file. Okay, whatever that you can fill up and just nicely represent in the form of Excel file. And that Excel file, you should be able to represent it in the form of a table, which is of course, or in the form of a matrix. You're a mathematics student, you are very close to matrices, right? So this table is in fact matrices. Okay, so that is structured data. It has got well-defined rows and columns. Okay, whereas semi-structured are like your dictionary. Your dictionary has two entities. The standard dictionary that you look at for words, right? That's a simple example. Why? One is keyword, the word that you're searching for. And then next is the explanation. So basically for semi-structured, there are two information actually. One is key, the other one is explanation. So the key can be the just word, and the explanation can be very long and lengthy explanation. Right? That is called semi-structured. So in Python, an example of a semi-structured container, we call it container, something that we keep, right? Container, your food container. So in Python, there are many containers. Matrix is a type of container, mathematical object container. Here, semi-structured container of a Python is a dictionary. The word dictionary, we call it dictionary as well. Dictionary has key and the value. The value can be in terms of explanation, as I said earlier. Here we have key and value, key and something, right? Which is, if I enlarge a little, you can see it is in the quotation mark. For example, first double dot. First is actually key, and then double dot in the code is AAA. Right? So that is actually some sort of explanation, or can be even, for example, you can see even dates or anything for that matter. Anything goes. That's why it's called semi-structured, but it has some sort of structure, right? That's why it's called semi-structured. Whereas unstructured data are all those, for example, tweets that you make, the Facebook sentences, or even some audio or video that you upload, right? You do tweets, right? You do Instagram. All those social media data is a combination of audios and videos and some icons, right? Emojis. These are unstructured data, right? So image is actually a very nice format. For example, JPG, PNG, right? But still, it is considered as unstructured data. If you ask me, I would not do that, I will say it's a structured data, but according to the definition, images, videos, audios all fall under unstructured data. Okay? Okay, so these are three big classes. In this course, we will work on structured data. Okay? You can do some sort of semi-structured. We will do maybe a little bit on some semi-structured. Unstructured, probably unlikely. Okay? All right. Now, types. Okay. So first is the type. The type is like big container, right? For example, this type. What type of this? Let me see. Okay, I think you can write. What type is this? Structure, right? Table. Table, of course, it's a structured data, right? Okay. Now the type of data simply means what information you are going to put inside. That's what it means in this slide. So first we know this type is actually a table, is a structured data. So what kind of value I'm going to put inside is the type of data that we are going to talk about. So what are kind of values we can put? We can put numerical ones. For example, discrete. Discrete means integers, right? And then continuous. Continuous simply means real numbers. Discrete, simple example will be number of hospital visits. How many times you visit hospital in a year? You cannot say 2.5, right? You say 2 or 3 or maybe 10, right? So those are discrete data. Whereas continuous data, for example, what is the temperature of this room? It can be 37.5, not necessarily 37, 36, right? It can be in between. So first is the numerical type, which is either discrete or continuous. The next one is categorical data. Categorical data are all the classes, type of class, right? Categorical data has two types also. One is numerical data, and the other one is ordinal data. Ordinal means no order. Oh, sorry. Ordinal means order. O-R-D. That is order, right? Order. For example, the rating that you make, right? The rating of a restaurant you make. Okay, and then nominal are very much ordered. Oh, sorry, nominal very much unordered. Yeah, for example, a male and female, right? 0, 1. There's no order to rate. For example, maybe the colors 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 representing red, green, blue, yellow. Not necessarily 0 is bigger than green is bigger than red, right? So that is the difference. One is with order, the other one is without order. Okay, now what is machine learning? Machine learning, basically, you take your data, your input of the data. The output is that, okay, your output, you put it into the model, it gives you a model. The model here means like you can use it to predict. Okay, so there are some visitors here. Okay, so there are some visitors. Okay. Anyway, so you input a data in your model. This model is actually a method, right? This method will take your data in, and we are trying to predict and make a model that can predict. Right? You'll give something to it, and then you will predict what type of, like example just now, yes or no, etc. Okay. So of course, in this model, there are a set of rules for how we develop the model. Okay. So very much like just like a function. A function will take argument, right? An argument, for example, fx, right? So output can be in the form of x squared. So x squared, this is output. So this output we say as a predictive model, where the input, our input, of course, in the form of data. Okay, so very simple, probably overly simplified, but let's move on. Okay, now why don't I just use simple rule-based problem solving? This is an example. Okay, example, whether we want to predict whether a car's sale or car's price will be high or low, right? For example, a car's mileage is less than 150,000 kilometers. Then we look at the vehicle's age, whether more than less than 10 years of yes or no. Based on these two answers, we say whether it is whether the resale value is high or low. Right? This is very much a simple rule-based model. Right? We can just like think of this answer, create new few questions, answer the question and say whether high or low. Right? That's one way to move forward. So of course, there can be many, many more factors. The more factor it is, then the more complicated it becomes to create this rule-based model. The worst part is that the data changes, and then the amount of data changes as well. Not just the character of the data changes. The character here simply means the type, the features. You can see about 13 features here. We can add, keep on adding more features as we collect more data. Right? It is very much things change very drastically, right? So that's where the limitation of the rule-based problem solving, right? The first thing is that very rigid, right? Every single time you have like a new parameter, you got to change the new rules, right? And of course, these rules are basically created by an expert in that particular field of study, right? So very rigid. But when it comes to machine learning, things are very fast. We can change as we want, and the data changes drastically as well. So as the data changes, we can quickly change the model such a way that it accurately predicts your answer. Okay, so the comparison between rule-based and machine learning model. A simple example here, the machine learning supposed to frame a face. See how beautifully it frames. For example, I will ask machine learning to count the number of human beings in this picture, right? So it can quickly frame the face and then count for me, right? Okay, it's not easy to do with rule-based. I don't even know how to do with rule-based. Okay. Okay, so core of machine learning, it's data-driven. Your model basically based on your data, right? Learning algorithms automatically find patterns and structure of the data. The performance of the predicting model will gradually improve and make decisions. The goal is to find a good model that generalize well to unseen data. Again, it might sound like statistics and math modeling, right? So in order to differentiate, we also show statistics and machine learning. The statistic here can be math modeling as well. Okay, the purpose of statistics or math modeling is to draw inference from the data. For example, you do kind of a t-test and all that. That's the purpose. When it comes to machine learning, you want to find a generalizable predictive pattern. Sometimes you just want to find a pattern, right? The pattern of the data, the structure of the data. So it is not a directing for statistical modeling. Then the approach for statistics, formalization of relationship between variables in the form of mathematical equations. Whereas for machine learning algorithm that can learn from data without relying on rules-based programming, right? And data size, as you know, machine learning, these days we have huge amount of data. Statistical modeling will still struggle to deal with this huge amount of data. There are assumptions as well. Statistical modeling, the first, when you start learning about statistical modeling, they will break into two. One is called non-parametric statistics. And then there's the parametric statistics. So basically, you will deal with the problem based on the distribution of the data. That is statistical modeling. Whereas for machine learning, we don't care. Right? We just take as it is, we'll just chunk it, push it into machine learning, and it will give us a predictive model. Of course, the information of the distribution will be helpful. What I'm saying here is that machine learning can work even without understanding or knowing the distribution of the data. Interpretability, statistical modeling high, machine learning low. Here, interpretability means how well you can explain what you do. Right? When it comes to machine learning works like a black box, right? So you can just push all the data in, it'll give you a predictive model. And even the model, you can't write it like y equals mx plus c. Right? Y equals mx plus c means you know what's inside. Right? Whereas machine learning here, you wouldn't know. It's just a collection of weights. For example, neural network. The model is just a collection of weights. You wouldn't know how to represent it, right? So that is interpretability. But now we have a field of study called explainable AI. You call it XAI. You can go and Google it out. It's called explainable AI. People are doing research on it. So how to make machine learning more transparent, right? Okay. Anyway, we'll go and look at it. And then statistical modeling relies on estimation. Machine learning relies on perpetual improvement. It's a cycle actually for machine learning. Machine learning is not a flow, one direct flow, rather it's a cycle. You will keep on improving based on the data, because data keep on changing, right? So equation changes, and then question changes as the data changes. So machine learning is very much adaptive to data changes. Subfield of statistics, of course, mathematics, and subfield of machine learning, they put it as computer science. I don't really agree to it, but I believe mathematics is the main thing for machine learning, right? Okay, so you would see as we go through this course. Okay, terminology. This is the most basic terminology that I'm going to explain. Okay, all right, and then I give you a link here. You can click on this link, the first blue text here, ML glossary for Google Team. There are also nice terms and meaning there, right? So click on it, you will get to see the meaning there. But here, let's go through a little. Okay, first is sample, just like statistics, right? So sometimes we call it sample, but here machine learning usually call it data. So sample and data basically is the same, just the collection of data that you have. Okay, here, let me draw. Okay, let's draw a table. So I have a table. Okay, so I have row 1, row 2, and then column 1, column 2, column 3. I see instance here. What is instance? So basically row 1, actually instance 1. This is instance 2, just observation. Okay. So for example, in a class, if I take data from students, so R1 represents student 1, R2 represents student 2, right? So rather than calling student 1, student 2, observation 1, observation 2, I call it instances. Okay, instances. And here, these are features, right? Features. Okay, features. Okay, or sometimes I call it attributes. Attributes. These are instances. Okay, these are actually computer science terms, right? Okay, and then we have target and label. Final output, actually label. Okay, final output of the prediction or true outcome of the target. Example. Okay, y equals to mx plus c. My target is y. I'm going to predict y based on my feature x. So this is my target, x is my feature. M and C are just some numbers that I'm going to predict. Machine learning going to give me what is M and C. I will give number of y's, number of x, push it in, and I'm going to give a new y. It's going to give me the result. What is y based on given x? Okay, that's what machine learning does. So feature, I just explained to you. Feature are all the variables and characters or attributes that is in your data. Right? For example, as I said, C1 here and C2 and C3 are all features for this data set. Okay. And then label, sample, example, include both feature and label. So for example, I have X, okay, and then Y, let's say. So I give one, X is 1, Y is 3, X is 2, Y is 9, X is 3, y is 12, let's say. So I'll give x is 4. What is y? So y are actually labels. So this data set actually labeled data set. Okay. So I give x and y, and I'm going to give end of the day, I'm going to give x, and I'm going to ask what is y. So the target is y, right? That's why you say the target is y. We can also call it as label, whereas the feature would be x. Okay. Feature x. Label, whatever that we are going to figure out, we are going to like predict is y. Okay. And unlabeled. Sometimes I have x, y. I just want to push it in, ask how many patterns in here. Maybe it will tell me, oh, okay, there are actually 2 patterns. This guy itself is 1 pattern, 1 group. The rest of the guys are another group. So for this is actually a clustering work. For this work, I don't need label. I don't need target. I just need to know how many groups or classes in there. Okay. So we have 2 types of data actually. One type with label, or we call it target. Another type is no label, no target. Okay. With the label, of course, we can do supervised learning because there are labels, right? We can teach. This is this, this is this, this is this. End of the day, we ask, what is this? This is this label. Whereas unsupervised is actually clustering. You just push all data in. You don't do any kind of teaching. Rather, it will tell me how many groups in there. Okay, 2 types of data set. An example of data.